we shall speak about Nicaea and Eastern mathematical rules and historical theological questions. You have my text I shall summarize many things. 4 reasons that will be better illuminated by the rest of this paper. Christian Easter is, in our calendar, Julian or Gregorian, a movable feast. The formula used to establish the annual date today is as follows. Easter falls on the Sunday following the 14th day of the moon, which reaches this age on March 21 or immediately after. Traditionally, the settling of this formula is attributed to the Council of Nicaea. Moreover, to this council is also commonly attributed a rule of calculation that takes into account the 3 discriminating elements contained in the formula: Sunday, the 14th day of the moon, and the vernal equinox. This double attribution goes back to Dionysius Exiguus, a Scythian monk of the second half of the 1st century. Now, among the canons recognized as emanated from the Council of Nicaea, none of them takes care to detail either the Paschal formula or the calculation to implement this formula in practice. Yes, the unanimous documents contemporaneous with the Council or quasi-contemporaneous don't deny that the Council was concerned about the dissension caused in this time by the various ways of establishing the date of Easter, and that, in this respect, he prescribed the unity of all churches of the empire. There is therefore a contradiction between the 2 series of observation I have just summarized: double attribution versus evasive nature of the documents. The purpose of this paper is to examine or even to remove this contradiction. In concreto, it will be a question of pointing out as accurately as possible what the Council did or wanted to do, and with what success. I shall do this in 3 parts: collect contemporary text, draw lesson from this text, and take a look to the after Council, at the future of the Council's decision of whatever nature they may have been. For such a glance allows us to better understand in retrospect the aim of the Council on the subject that concerns us. There is a bibliography. I don't quote it. First part, Nicaea and before Nicaea, review of the text. The text we have about the question of Easter at Nicaea are of 2 categories of authors. First category, Greek ecclesiastical historians, Eusebius, Socrates, Sozomen, Theodoret of Cyrus, and second category, a contemporary, Athanasius of Alexandria. First, the Eusebius dossier. In the ecclesiastical history, in the 4th and 5th book of this history, Eusebius speaks about the quartodeciman quarrel of the 2nd and 3rd century, of the 2nd century. We shall come back on these quartodecimans. In the book 5, and also book 7, Eusebius speaks about Anatolius of Laodicea. Eusebius, above all, in the book 7, Eusebius quotes, and likely at the end, just a bridge, an extract from Anatolius' rules on Easter. This text is important, and we will come back to it. But no, we can note two major features. First feature, it names Jews who formerly placed the Passover obligatorily after the vernal equinox. And two, it gives some details on their way of calculating. Second piece of the Eusebian dossier, the life of Constantine. In the life of Constantine, book 3, there is a copy of Constantine's letter to the Synod of Nicaea. After the Synod of Nicaea, to the churches that were not represented there, on the need for a common date of celebration that departs from the Jewish computus. And in book 4 of this life of Constantine, there is a letter of the emperor to Eusebius himself for thinking of the sending of a book on the Easter. After Eusebius, other Greek ecclesiastical historians, there are 3. Socrates, I quote only in the book 1, chapter 9, a copy of Constantine's letter after the Synod of Nicaea to the churches that were not represented there. And in book 5, we have, by the historian, a complete examination of the question of Easter. Sozomen is shorter. In the first book of his history, he alludes to Constantine's displeasure as seeing the Oriental churches celebrating Easter at the same time of the Jews and apart from the other churches. Finally, Theodoret, also in his ecclesiastical history, Theodoret quotes a copy of the letter of the Synod of Nicaea to the Egyptian and a copy of Constantine's letter after the Synod. Apart from these historians, Eusebius and other ecclesiastical historians, we have the testimony of Athanasius of Alexandria. In 3 passages, one passage of the De Synodis. In this passage, chapter 5, the treatise of Athanasius was written after the Council of Seleucia Rimini in 359. In the passage concerning the date of Easter at the Council of Nicaea, Athanasius emphasized that, 1, the Paschal question was on an equal footing with the Trinitarian faith at the center of the Synod concerns. 2, it was about ensuring that, first, Christians in order to fix the date of Easter, do distinguish themselves from the Jews. 2, they all celebrate on the same day. The question was precisely to bring to common practice certain churches of Syria, Cilicia, Mesopotamia, which differed from the other church of the empire. Second testimony of Athanasius, the letter Adaphros. It repeats exactly what we have in the De Synodis. And the third testimony of Athanasius is in the De Decretis Nicaea Synodi, chapter 35. This treatise quotes the letter of the council to the Egyptian. What we can summarize from this inventory of documents is that there are few documents about the question of Easter. We have one in our historians, the letter to the Bishop of Egypt. It's the only text on the Paschal question from the council itself. It's possible that its author was, if not Alexander of Alexandria in person, at least somebody close to him, Athanasius, who was his deacon and was with him at Nicaea. On Easter, this letter to the Bishop of Egypt contains two essential features: the unity found, the resurrection of the Jewish date. And second document we have in the historians, Eusebius and others, is the Constantine letter to the church after the council. To these two elements, we must add the contemporaneous testimony of Athanasius. That's the inventory of the sources. The teaching, second part of the sources. Against whom the council took a stand. Against those who follow the Jews. That is, not the old Quartodecimans from the 2nd and 3rd century, but rather what person that the French historian Louis Duchesne named Protopaschite, who celebrated Easter on a Sunday after the 14th of Nisan, not on the 14th of Nisan, but the Sunday after, without no other criterion. The only criterion for these Christians was the 14th of Nisan. They were not Quartodecimans because they didn't celebrate on the 14th of Nisan, but on Sunday immediately after. It's probable that the council was against these groups. These groups, second point, were groups in in the Syrian area, not in Asia Minor, like the old Proto-Decimans, but the East, Syrian East. It's what we find in the letter of Constantine and also in the Athanasian documents. What third teaching of the Council, what does it mean to follow the Jews? The letter of Constantine say that these dissidents celebrate Easter a second time in the same year. What does it mean? Celebrate Easter a second time in the same year. In fact, the Jews in the 3rd and 4th century followed a lunar calendar, a year of 354 days, with the addition of an embolismic month, an additional or intercalary month every 3 years at the end of the 3rd year. The choice they made and the protopaschets made with them didn't know the vernal equinox, and this implied the possibility of an Easter feast before that equinox, and thus, yes, of 2 Easters in the current solar year. And conversely, the risk that there would not be no Easter the following year if the Jewish Passover that year fell by chance after the equinox. Yeah, thank you. One more step. To fully understand what it means to follow the Jews, we will return to the evolution of Jewish practice. And here we find Anatolius. Anatolius, who says, according to Eusebius, that the old Jews from the time of Philo and Josephus had a practice different from the Jews of his time, which included the vernal equinox. And not to follow the Jews means to follow the Jews of the old, of the 1st century, according to Anatolius, quoted by Eusebius. Naturally, the basis of this is anti-Judaism, but also the accusation of breach of unity. Of breach of unity because communities were in the solace of Easter, while others were still in the macerations of Lent. I must say that all that shows that the Council has a very narrow aim. It wouldn't give a formula for calculating. The aim was unity. Yes, also with 3 criteria. That's Sunday, 14th of Nisan, and vernal equinox. But how to combine these 3 criteria? The Council never said something. I think we must have in the mind the narrowness of the aim, of the objective of the Council, as show all the subsequent history. And this subsequent history, you can read it when my paper will be published. If I Thank you very much.